Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, President, Founder of GST Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which is sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company co-founded with Dr. David Yang. So I'd like to welcome each of you to GST Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech, the show where we bring in the founders, investors, and visionaries who are not just building companies, but shaping the future of global innovation. Today's conversation sits at the intersection of venture capital, AI, and national security, a place where the stakes are high, the decisions are complex, and the outcomes define industries. I'm excited to welcome my friend Paul Anthony Claxton, managing partner of Digerati Investments. He brings a rare combination of experience, 10 years as a U.S. Marine with 4 combat tours, followed by leadership roles in Fortune 500 companies, and now as an investor backing technically elite AI founders at the earliest stages. What makes Paul unique is not just what he invests in, but how he thinks. His framework for evaluating founders deploying capital is shaped by real-world pressure, uncertainty, and execution, not just theory. He's also deeply engaged in shaping the next generation of AI leaders as an advisor, podcast host, and thought leader at the intersection of AI, venture capital, and defense. And today we're going to explore a critical question. What are the new rules for venture capital in an AI-driven world, especially at institutional scale? With that, I'd like to introduce Paul to the show. Hi, Paul. I can't hear you. You're frozen. Yeah, I can't hear you. Can you hear me, Paul? Paul, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hmm. I cannot hear you. I'm not sure. Can you hear me? Raise your thumb if you can hear me. Yeah, I can't hear you. I'm not sure what the problem is. It was working before. Um, hmm. Yeah, I hear you now, Paul.
Okay, all right. Strange. As soon as it was time for me to speak, it's like blackout.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay. So anyhow, I really appreciate you taking time. We'll go down through and edit this thing
Mhm.
to make sure that that's correct. So let me get down through. So let me start. Paul, I want to explore this from a slightly different angle today. Not just venture capital as funding, but venture capital as a system that shapes outcomes, especially in AI, where the capital markets are. So, question one: how has the decision making under extreme uncertainty shaped your investment philosophy, and what do most VCs fundamentally misunderstand about risk today? I lost you again, Paul. I can't hear you. I see your lips moving, but I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now.
All right. I think I know what's going on there. Somehow my iPhone is talking to my Mac, so I just turned my iPhone off. Okay. So going back to your first question, how the rules changed. What does that mean in terms of how we're evaluating companies, essentially, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, today the rules are quite a bit different in terms of venture capital, and there's really three areas that I look at that I'm pretty strict about when it comes to evaluating companies. There's diligence, there's disclosure, and then there's data rooms. And the importance of each are really the heartbeat of evaluating companies, right? So when we talk about diligence can mean a whole lot of different things. A lot of people think that diligence means we're going to run financial checks and legal. We're going to do some legal legwork on the company, but it's so much more than that, right? There's the technical diligence that needs to take place. There's the cap table diligence, right? So when we're evaluating companies, we're not just evaluating the market opportunity, we're also evaluating who's on the cap table and what they're bringing to the party. Either is company team members within the company, or investors on the cap table. So we look at things like that. We also look at execution. How well do the founders function under pressure? So I don't believe that diligence can be done
Well,
simply.
you know that, Paul. You did 4 tours, right? And you understand how important it is to be able to work under pressure, right? And to be able to succeed. And a lot of times, these startups don't understand how to deal with pressure, and they fold for all
That's
kinds.
that's correct, and that's part of my mentality is actually working with founders before we invest. Right, that's a form of diligence, and there's so many things that approach has uncovered for me that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to realize. Right, like these things would have crept by me, and I would have already put money in the company, and I would have realized it after the fact, right? But I realized a lot of things in working with founders that brings me to the conclusion that this is not a company that maybe they're investable. You can invest in anything, but they're not an institutional VC company.
I remember taking the course at Stanford, and it said that the storytelling, 90% of building a unicorn is the story. It's not the product or service. And sometimes we forget how important the narrative is in order to be successful and to be able to command the audience and be straight and narrow. Are we overestimating intelligence as a driver of value in AI and underestimating distribution, integration, and workflow? What do you think? And then where's the value actually occurring right now?
I think that there are specific use cases for AI, but uh, there's this AI, this appetite for AI that is we're overindulging in it, so to speak. And there's this insatiable appetite for AI that, we think that AI needs to be everywhere, and it doesn't really at this point. And so I think that there are a limited amount of use cases where AI needs to exist in business and society and everyday life. And I think that we should place more limitations around how AI is being used and deployed, right? So, when I look at where AI truly belongs, it's in areas like infrastructure, cybersecurity, healthcare, maybe educational technologies as well. So those areas. But I think that we need AI, for dating? No, I don't.
Yeah, it's interesting because about 14 months ago, I built a cancer vaccine for my dog at a molecular level who had
Mhm.
stage 4 kidney cancer. And we had her tumor taken out and analyzed. And we built a vaccine and put her in complete remission of stage 4 kidney disease. Now it's or kidney cancer. Now it's a big deal. But in fact, there was a guy just in Paul Coiningham in Australia just did it for his dog too. And so, I'm not a doctor, but under these frontier sciences is going to help change everything. And for myself, I had stage 3 kidney disease. And I actually put my multi agent large language model on top of that. And it told me if I did pluripotent stem cells and had those put in me through an IV from an umbilical cord, that there's a potential to get rid of it. My doctor said there is no cure for stage 3 kidney disease. Well, I did it. And within a week, I was tested again and my kidney disease was gone. It was that fast. In fact, I wrote the book, The Day Stem Cells Changed Me. And I've had 3 of those. And these frontier sciences are going to change everything because, Paul, it's about infobesity. We have too much data around us. In Paul's world, you got about 300,000 items in your personal cloud. The entire web in 1996, Paul, was 257,000 websites. You have more information in your personal cloud than the entire web. The problem is Paul's world is following the same trajectory as the World Wide Web, but that'd mean doubling every year. In 5 years with the Internet of Things, you're going to have 10 million. You're a smart guy. You went to Harvard Extension School. You've been in the military. You've commanded troops. But the problem is infobesity. How many times the last 2 weeks somebody said, "Hey, Paul, I sent you a message. Did you get it? Where'd you send it?" I sent it your email. Which one of the 7? Your EDU from Harvard. When did you send it? No, it's your other one, your Yahoo. Uh,
Mhm.
Let me check. I can't find it. Send it again. The problem is infobesity. And if we don't solve this issue, there's going to be 2 classes of society, in my opinion: the people that understand the data and orchestrate it, and the people that don't. You can already see income changing because people know how to command AI already. And so these companies that are with profound, I have a little bit different opinion. If it's used correctly, we can solve a lot of the challenges that we got in front of us. Man, we got a lot of them, right? We've got global warming. We've got the population 8.1 billion going to 13 by the end of the century, double the food supply by 2050. A lot of stuff. You know, in a world, Paul, that has access to AI deals, where does the true alpha in venture capital come from today?
I think the true alpha is in how we think, how we hold AI accountable. So companies that are not just building products, but I have a framework I call the 10-year test. So companies that are building products that can exist in 10 to 15 years, that's the old way of venture capital. Now, you're because we're at the foundational level of AI, right? It's not yet sentient, right? And so the companies that are building AI today, those will be the Googles, the NVIDIAs, 10 to 15 years from now, right? So the foundational companies today, like OpenAI, et cetera, and everything that is born out of that, those will be the companies that set the pace for the next 100 years. And the companies that will set the pace for the next 100 years are ones that are not these AI wrapper companies, and throw that in the trash. But it's these companies that are building, society, like products for humanity, products for infrastructure, products that literally advance society forward, right? And those are the companies that are going to be around, that are going to set the precedent, and they need to build with AI accountable, right? With ethical AI frameworks built around that. Someone said to me the other day that they were criticized for calling their AI a he, and the person told them, no, it's not a he, it's not a person, it's an it. But think about that. We should humanize AI. We should think of it as a human, because
Yeah,
we don't.
nothing good happens. Let me tell you, Paul, nothing good happens if you don't build empathy and compassion in these models. And,
Exactly.
I was talking to, actually, I have another call with one of the top psychiatrists in the United States, and we built a model where we took Skinnerian psychology, actually from your alma mater, Harvard, operant conditioning, and I tokenized goodness, and I created unconditional positive regard, love, right? Essentially, Rogerian psychology on the top of it. So we made it so it cares. And so if it doesn't care, nothing good's going to happen, right?
Right,
If it
right.
doesn't, and the problem is that, the people that are building these systems today primarily are engineers that have not, they're not clinical psychologists like I am, that can go down through and understand humanistic psychology and compassion and empathy. And if we
Right.
don't do that, and we treat it in a pragmatic way, I mean, the kind of stuff we do to each other is not good, right? A lot of times we do bad things, and if it evaluated, it would, might not like us, right? And some of the things that we do to each other. Here's another thing I wanted to touch base with you. With all the things geopolitically are going on in the world, and you've seen a lot of them, what do you think? How big is defense spending going to be using the quantum computing and AI, right? Because I see changes taking place right now. Do you see that as changing, from what it was 3 years ago to today, where there's more of a focus on how we can use these technologies like drones, right, and swarming and all that to be able to really go down through and defend the U.S., to defend each one of the countries?
It's funny. I was just having a similar conversation like this recently, and so I think the U.S. defense budget is close to $1 trillion a year. You could take all of the world's other superpowers, combine them. So we're talking about China, Russia, combine them, and it still wouldn't equal half of the U.S. defense budget. So I think with the current U.S. Government that we have, I think that there's been a reality check in America in terms of where our capabilities are at and where the other nations in the world, where their capabilities and intentions are at. And I think we're starting to kind of realize what's important. And I think that the defense budget with things like quantum computing and AI, the current state of things in the world is certainly putting more attention on that and speeding things up there. The U.S. government has more technology than they talk about, right? More capability than they talk about. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot more leaders, being advisors to the U.S. government, sitting within, the confines or the parameters of the U.S. government. So the short answer to your question is yes, I see much more happening there. And we have a dual use mandate at my VC firm. I think that when people think of dual use or defense spending, they say, oh, it's weapons. No, there's a lot that goes around that, right? So we're talking about things like cybersecurity, spatial
Absolutely.
exploration, and so
We better get our act together with that, because you start getting quantum computers, and some country starts to invest in it, which are
yeah,
100 million times faster than the fastest supercomputer, which means it would take 10,000 years, takes 200 seconds. Real
yeah.
statistics from Google. Nothing good's going to happen. And I don't think we focused on that, Paul. We've been a leader for so long in technology, but we've kind of lost our way a little bit. We better get our act together. And it seems like it started again. I'm starting to get some of the feeling that it started again, and we understand that we better use our competitive AI and quantum advantage to stay ahead, because you don't want some nefarious folks getting ahead of us, because
Well,
nothing.
it's interesting, Gary. So we talk about like drone warfare. So my commander during the invasion of Iraq, Lieutenant Colonel Wayne Phelps, wrote a best-selling book called "Killing Remotely." He commanded a squadron of drones, a UAV squadron called VMU in the Marine Corps. I myself was in an anti-air defense unit where I was slugging around Stinger missiles, trained to support the air squadrons, but shoot down fighter jets and attack helicopters and so forth. But towards the end of my career, I ran a command operations intelligence center where actually the US in Iraq was leading the front, leading the charge with the development. We were the first nation to actually use drone warfare technology in a combat simulation or scenario. We talk about the Ukraine using it at scale, but that's just one piece. That's what gets advertised, because we have social media to thank for that. We're in an information age more so than we were in 2007 when I was running a command intelligence center, right? And so a lot of things didn't get talked about. But today we live in a social media information age, and so everybody thinks that the Ukraine is the first one to really deploy drone warfare, but actually it was the U.S. during Iraq.
Well, I know we had the Predators and all that. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
What they've done is they've made them cheap.
Yeah, they made them cheaper, right?
Really cheap. So you get a $500 or $1,000 for something that's going to fly in and do some nasty stuff.
Yeah.
Kamikaze fashion. That's unbelievable. And so, one of the, I don't know about you, but I worked in, I spent some time down in Washington myself. So, and with prime contractors, and I've seen a lot of waste, and we got to go down through and start coming up with the solutions a whole lot faster and a whole lot cheaper. Right. And
absolutely.
We got to figure out how to optimize it, because nothing good's going to happen.
Well, the other thing is too, when you talk about, I wanted to go back to our original part of the conversation. We were talking about diligence and disclosure. That comes down to explainable AI, right? I have a podcast called Explainable AI. So disclosure, we've opened up another corridor into disclosure and the importance, why that's important in terms of evaluating companies. And the other thing is too, is that so you have people that are building AI systems, vibe coding, as you call it, and building, AI wrapper companies, or they're building things that really they don't understand, And so when you talk about disclosure, we really want to see the true holistic picture of a company. Most of the pitches that I get are talking about all the best things of the company, and that's not disclosure. So we leave ourselves open up to infestation when we put money into things that we don't understand. And I contributed my thoughts to help Ray First publish his book, The Future of Venture Capital. I did a review for him, and he thanked me for that in his book. But in his book, he says, you can't pick winners. So, how does a world champion poker player like Ray First evaluate companies? You can't. How do you pick winners, and why do some good deals get missed and a lot of bad deals get made? And so there is a strategy to this, an asymmetric strategy, but it is very hard to pick winners. And so you can't know everything. But in this day and age, the VC firms that are not building their own proprietary AI products to match their thesis like we have, I have a AI diligence product called Scale Curves that I built. The ones that aren't doing that are going to be behind the power curve in terms of their investments, because there's no way that you can pick winners, but you do need to know everything that can say, okay, is this company likely to be a winner or a loser? Because it's very hard for the human mind to pick winners. But if you can get enough information, study it and read it and dissect it and grade it, then you're more likely to make the right decisions as a fund manager.
One of the things that we forget about, Paul, this is, I've been doing this for 44 years, right? And one of the things we forgot about, put my psychology hat on. And so as a psychologist, one of the things I look at is a person, because you can pivot any company to become a unicorn. People talk about pivoting, but they never talk about how far you can take it. You can
Yeah.
pivot to success if you have, one, the operational expertise, two is the access to capital, and three, the network and contacts. And if you have those three in a resilient team, any company could become it. I've done it. And so if we find those people that have the flexibility, that are smart, they know that they don't know, right? I guess that's the starting point. And then you can take those companies and turn them into unicorns faster than anybody's imagined. The problem is nobody's really taking that approach, because it's a very humanistic, psychological approach to building the model. And the technologies, of course, you have to have an understanding of the technologies, but I'm assuming that there's, a level playing field, but the person, right? What kind of in the team? And we've been, I've been, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and 17 companies myself, and 184 inside of GSD now. And I've seen it time and time again. And now the companies are starting to take off. And you're right, it's not just about talking about AI. In fact, in 2016, I built one of the first generative AI companies, pre-transformer models. We actually sold it already. In fact, David Yang, the guru, AI guru, and who built a $1 billion company, was my partner in that one. And it's going to change. It's going to change so fast. You're going to see companies coming in. Sam Altman said, we're going to have a $1 billion company with one employee. It's not out of the bounds now. Anything could happen, right? If you know how to orchestrate the AI, you can imagine the possibilities, right? You've seen it yourself. Listen, we're coming up to the top of the show. Sorry, we have to go, but I've got to jump onto this other one. I'm a few minutes late. I just wanted to. We'll have to get you on again. I'll go down through and edit this one so we take out some of the dead space on it. But what are your closing thoughts, Paul, and how do people get a hold of you?
My closing thoughts are, just if you're a founder, I'm going to talk from a VC and a founder perspective, because I've been both. I am both. If you're a founder and you're raising capital, just take some time to understand how this industry works, and don't pitch like a founder, pitch like an investor, like you're going to be a partner. Understand the different types of capital, and be humble enough to come to the realization, be honest with yourself. Is my company really a VC company? If it's not, maybe you're investable, but maybe not VC investable. So family offices, high net worth individuals is the alternative, or bootstrap, right? Until you're at a stronger point of leverage. So that's the founder angle. From a VC angle, again, command and control. It's a military term, but we need to have that as VCs. I am shocked at how many VCs lob over deals to me, and they want me to evaluate it, and I'm like, look, I don't do anything without controls in place, without a deal share agreement. Otherwise, we're into he said, she said, and that's when you get liability. So controls, if you want to share deals with me or back and forth, and then again, I would recommend the VCs that, I see a lot of investors and VCs that rely on the disclosure of others. Every deal is different. Every VC's thesis is different. So that means that you, as a VC investor, have to do your own disclosure as an allocator, fiduciary manager, because you're going to uncover things that are not a fit for your thesis that you wouldn't otherwise uncover if you're relying on another firm's diligence. I don't care if it's Sequoia Capital. So those are my parting thoughts. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm the only Paul Anthony Claxton on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can also view my website at paulclaxton.io.
That's great. Paul, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And thank you for joining one more time. GSD Presents Top Global Startups. And thanks to all of you. We're now closing in on 1,700 podcasts, and we appreciate that with millions of views. Thank you, everybody. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, Paul, and thanks, everybody.